Everybody, it's Elizabeth from Silvernest Homeschooling Mom of 4, and I wanted to talk to you today about some of the challenges and the joys of homeschooling high school. I know that a lot of you are on your journey, you're starting in the first part, but there are some specific challenges and just emotional stuff that I've discovered as I've been homeschooling high school that is just different than when I was homeschooling elementary and even the middle school years. And so I wanted to just take a moment and talk through some of those things and just give a word of encouragement that even though I'm in the thick of it right now, 2 on the collegey side and 2 on the not collegey side, and then trying to make decisions for college for next year, I just want to say there are some things that are different, that hit a little different, but there is hope that we can still do this. Now, there is no problem with deciding I'm going to homeschool my kids or prayerfully deciding I'm going to homeschool my kids until a certain point and then put them back in a public system, or I'm going to send them to, what we do is we send them to the college local, and so they're able to get their college degree and their high school diploma at the same time, even though we've done everything as if they're going to graduate from our homeschool as well. That's just our personal conviction, the way that we've done what's good for our kids. It's not necessarily what we recommend for everybody, but it is what works for us. So what I want to go through is I did write some of these things down because these were things that I just didn't think about going into the high school years. And the first one is I just didn't think about I'm their guidance counselor. If they're in a public school system, they get assigned a guidance counselor. Now, that may not be a good fit for them, or that person, they may not know how to reach out to them, but they were there, they fulfilled a role, they helped them jump through certain hoops that were helpful, like when do I take the ACT? When do I take the SAT? Which one should I take? Should I take either one? What are my choices? What are my options for careers outside of going to college, which is a very important question in this day and age. Will college even be worth it? And if I do decide to go to college, how do I sign up for college? How do I do those things? And I remember myself wanting to go to college and not feeling like succeeded in those areas. And I had a guidance counselor. And that is one of the things that's given me a lot of peace as I'm learning how to navigate this with my kids, is that I also didn't really know how to do this, but I had the resources that I was supposed to have in order to do this. They actually make it a lot easier now. A lot of the scholarships are online. A lot of the websites and stuff are all linked. You still have to do some digging and some research. And that's the other thing that gave me comfort. I was like, many homeschool parents tend to be researchers. That's why we end up here. That's how we find our curriculums. It's getting back that energy to start being a researcher with your children alongside your teens, to look up and to find things that will help them with their future. And then that balance of like, how much is that on them versus how much is that on me? One of the other things that I really find challenging in the high school years, just to be honest, is the difference between raising a really good adult who knows how to clean the house and do things, and raising a youth that is still young and is still enjoying these few years where they're back at home, and not wanting them to be babied, but also not wanting to give them full-fledged adult responsibilities before time. So often I'm praying for that balance, like, how many chores should they have? How many things am I passing on to them because I don't want to, versus things that are really important for them? Or how many things am I not giving them because it's just easier if I take care of it? So that question of like, where is the responsibility factor? How much fun this kid is having in this activity, but it's not really going to serve them towards their future in some respects. And so finding that balance for them, or one of the things that I struggled with was I was really good in school and I had a lot of good extracurricular activities that helped me get some scholarships into college, but I didn't really know how to maintain my life and my job. So I really struggled when I came home. I didn't want to clean, and I still don't like cleaning. I can do it, and I'm not bad at it. And I know how my mom did a great job teaching me to clean, how to cook, but I didn't like it. And yet here I am, a single person who needed to work full time and then come home and make myself food and clean my world. And then when I got married, it was the two of us navigating, thankfully he was also somebody who cooked. And so the two of us navigating cooking and cleaning and all the things, and owning our own businesses and finding that balance. And I just feel like that's one thing that I just never have found. I just, in my head, it's just going to disappear, but the toilet never disappears and the thing never disappears. And so learning to help them to balance taking care of their responsibilities and their things at home, because that stuff isn't just going to disappear. Maybe they will make enough money to pay someone else to do it, but it'll take a while. So those are the things that yeah, trying to find that balance between those two. So guidance counselor, home coach, how much to let them fail and succeed. I think this is the time that you look back and you're like, oh, I wish I had done this earlier, but that is not an option anymore. So if you play the look back and regret game for too long, it'll actually sabotage the current wonderful season that we're in now. And so I've tried really hard to not worry about the regret and might look at a couple things in the past and say, okay, I've got another child coming. Thankfully, I've got more than one. I can maybe make some adjustments for that child. And of course, the older kids, I am learning ways to make the younger kids' worlds easier as we move forward. But that's just something that regret's just a waste of energy and time. We can ask the Lord to redeem the time. I've seen him do that over and over and over again. And also there are some lessons that honestly, even if I had taught them, they wouldn't have learned them. Working with my older adult, he, will come back and he'll talk to me and say, Mom, you did the right thing. I just didn't want to learn it then, or I wasn't ready to learn it then. And so being able to trust that the Lord is with them on this journey, handing them over more and more of the reins and the responsibilities and the choices that they're making, confirming I am not the one forcing them into this college situation, because if that's the case, then, that isn't going to be healthy for them or for me. But instead, like talking through the pros and cons, and each one of them has chosen that as a path. And then they take the responsibility, and then I'm there to back them up. But a lot of these like final years have to be, if you want to go to college, these are some of the decisions that need to make. And I'm very encouraged by my sister-in-law who, her parents, English was second language for them. And so she grew up her whole life translating for them and having to learn things for them, but also for herself. And so she had to learn to advocate for herself and her parents at an early age. And so by the time I got to college, she found her college, she picked her college, she applied for her scholarship, she went and visited her college, she chose her college, she paid her college loans, and she went to another state to do it, and she just made it happen. And that whole process has worked really well for the rest of her life, and the ways that she's viewed the world. And so part of me is like, we're not supposed to do it all for them. Let that sink in. We are not supposed to do it all for them. They have to have that balance between this is their thing. God is still faithful. If they don't get those 5,000 scholarships, then maybe they will learn how to pay loans off on the other side. If this is the call and the perspective and the thing that they're called to do, either way, the Lord's going to give us some character development. Either way, he's going to get us through it. I earned a lot of scholarships and grants, but on the other side, I did have some loans. And so the Lord showed up and he was faithful and helped me pay those off in miracle ways. And it helped me with my finances, helped me with my trust factor. I think too many times we want to just make it too easy for them. We want to give them what we didn't have, or we want to solve it for them. But I think that, we earned the badges of character development and growth, not by easy things. And so it's okay. It's okay. And it's okay too if your kid doesn't have a job and the person next to you does, right? Maybe your kid's on a different path. We didn't have regular full-time employment when we were in high school. I did work off and on, but it wasn't like a 9-to-5er or any kind of, some of my friends' kids, they're really doing great. They've got jobs and they're working hard, and that's character development, and they're working for someone else. And I highly recommend that for anyone that fits for them. And then I've got other kids who are super involved in different projects and things that are taking up the same amount of time they could be working and doing something else. And I feel like we just need to really press into the Holy Spirit and let him lead and guide us on what our kids and what they're being led to, and how to lead them, and not just have this cookie cutter, which is why we homeschool, guys. I mean, that's why we homeschool. And one of our foundations of why do we do this, right? When you're even thinking about homeschooling high school, go back to your whys. And for us, our why was in much part to get them to their goals and their dreams faster, more efficiently. And so we try to make space in their high school years to explore careers and ideas and concepts of what they might be willing and interested in doing, and giving them some empty space and some boring space so that they can fill that with some exploration to decide what it is that they're wanting to do. Now, if they're not using that time super wisely, we might come in and help do some, guidance counseling. But in general, we do try to help them to have more freedom, but more responsibility. Too much is given, much is required, and that kind of balance in between. I think the other thing is we need to be careful not to limit the vision of our kids based on our own abilities, skills, and history. And what I mean by that is my dad went to college and then he couldn't finish college because he ran out of money and his family refused to help him. And so his response was, I'm going to make sure all three of my kids get to college. They're going to graduate if they're bent towards it. And he did. He got all of us to graduate. And he didn't have a lot of money. He was a pastor and he prayed and God provided and showed up and did miracles for us to be able to do that. And I think that one of the biggest gifts and legacy that he left me when he left this earth was the belief that if God says he wants it to happen, it's going to happen. If God says it. Now, it has to be very clear that it's God and not our own selves. But there is a point where we and I, as a parent, can sometimes limit my kids' dreams, limit their calling, limit their purpose, because I don't see the way to make that happen, or I feel responsible to make that happen. And I think that there's this need to release our children into God's hands to do with what God wants to do with them. And that means us laying down some of our expectations, some of what we thought or hoped or believed this is the way the world was going to go, or this is the way we thought school was going to go, or this is the way we thought their classes were going to go. We need to be constantly praying and surrendering our own plans and making sure that they are lining up with the plans of God. And then praying that our kids will also walk that they will be surrendering. They will be constantly going back and saying, all right, Lord, what is it you want me to do? Because again, it has to be his leading and prompting. And so far for our kids, we've seen him show up as we've released them. We've seen him show up more and more and more. And one of the things I do for my kids in their high school years is I pray through the Bible for them. I journal through a Bible for them. And that has been a God-inspired idea for me. It keeps me focused on their future as well as their present. It helps me focus and not just, as I read the scripture and think about their whole life, like when they're 75 and when they're grandparents and when they're going forward and getting married and choosing life spouse partners and all that, it helps me stay focused that what we're raising now is the adult, not just the kid, not just the child. And it keeps me from babying them as much, because there is this sense of like, I treated the first 13-year-old like they were a grown-up. Now I got the last 13-year-old and, it's easy to be like, oh, stay young, stay small. But that is not healthy for them. And I struggle with it. Like, these are the things I struggle with and they've wrestled with. And then these are the responses and the replies of what God has been showing me about it. So just because we struggle, just because we wrestle, doesn't mean it's too hard. One of the things I have always said about our homeschool is that I'm a facilitator. I'm not a teacher. I will find you the class that you need, and I will find the person that is better at teaching it than I am. And if my mom is the better science teacher, then I will totally hand that off to my mom. She's been so amazing for that. I don't teach music. I find people to teach music. In the same way, I find a better science teacher or a better math teacher than I am, then I will pass that on. But if it's on me, if it's my class, then I'm going to treat that like you are, this is the only English class you get. So we better do a good job, focus on it. Don't pull it back. The people that I've seen that have really struggled with their homeschool, and especially in the high school years, is, our failures come back and look at us, their failures come back and look at us. And that self-discipline that we didn't take the time to instill in those younger years come back to bite us. And the things that I did spend the time train up the child in the way they should go, those have been a blessing. So, make sure if you are in your younger years, then, daily discipline, daily math, daily English, daily discipline. That is going to be important when they decide if they're going to go to work or not that day. We have got to start thinking in terms of, I'm not just protecting my child, I'm training them to go handle the world. I'm training them to go out there and be light and salt. I'm training them to go be able to have a conversation with somebody. I'm training them to go. And so it's the shelter in place mentality is, I find, very dangerous. The people that I know that sheltered in place and then released their kids, it was not pretty. And so we need to learn a balance between launching these innocent kids before their time into the craziness and making them have the reality of like little tiny increments and growth in every area. And I would say that we will ourselves need to go back to the drawing board and say, Lord, teach me self-discipline so I can instill it in my kids. I can't ask them to do what I'm not willing to do. I can't grow them any higher than me. So it is wonderful to homeschool high school kids. I absolutely love it. I am so spoiled. Like, I I get a lot more free time than I've ever had when they were little. They get up and do their own school on their own. I come back in and I correct it weekly. I have to correct it weekly or they will get a little bit off track, sometimes daily, depends on the subject and the child. But we have just, I have to be open to like super late night conversations. Teens tend to like these really late night conversations. So sleep is super premium for everybody, and being flexible and opening my hand and my ears and my heart to the moments that the Lord gives me with them while I have them here in the house is just been it. Just a lot more of that, a lot more of not my schedule, but a lot more of being told what the schedule is and then adapting and being flexible versus when I kind of ran everything. So I'm learning to pass the controls on to Jesus, on to the kids, and it's working. I'm proud of them. They're doing great. But these are some things to consider as you're going into the high school years, and some encouragement if you're already there. We can do this because God has called us to do what he's called us to do. I am a reluctant homeschooler. I cannot believe that we're still in this. I had totally tended to send my kids full-time, other people teaching them from middle school on, and that has definitely not happened. And I am grateful every day that I get to be with them. I'm grateful every time I get to instill in them something and call out of them something better and bigger, and to see them go beyond me. I want to be the parent that my kids stood on my shoulders and reached higher to what God had for them, just like my parents have done for us. And so keep dreaming, keep praying, keep trusting. The Lord, he who began this good work, is faithful to complete it. And we are going to make mistakes. We are going to fail them. So being quick to ask for forgiveness and being quick to ask the Lord to cover the areas that we have missed and messed up, that is so key for me too. I've seen myself really screw up, like, just to be real, like really, really screw up. And I've seen the Lord's grace cover my kids and cover me. It's not a pretty process. Any kind of growth is not pretty, but it is a good process as we keep putting one foot in front of the other. All right, encouragement for this day. We will talk to you soon. Remember, just a mom. This is not a business. This is just me saying, hey, this is what we did. This is what we struggled with. Talk to you soon.